Welcome Francis Peterson to the platform.
Thank you, Aranka, Michael, Trevor and Gabriel.
Welcome everyone. This is my first talk, so I'm hoping that you'll all be very kind and support me with some smiles along the way, and I've got my fan club up the back there that are doing just that. The first thing I'd like to do before I start this talk is to invite you to actually close your eyes for a moment and just take a nice deep breath. And what I'm going to do is not actually a meditation, it's actually just a visualization. And I want you to now imagine that you're walking up to the front door of your house. Open up the door and step into your house. And when you step into your house, you'll see that there is so many beautifully coloured, wrapped presents, big parcels, coloured and with ribbons and bows, and they are filling inside your house. Now, you're obviously quite surprised to see all these gifts in your house. So step forward now and see there are tags on each of these presents, these gifts. And have a look at the tag on one of these gifts and look at the tag to see who the gift is from. And where you see where the gift is from, you'll notice that it's your name on that gift. Now have a look at another gift and see who that's from, and you'll notice that that is from you as well. And you come to realise that all those gifts in your house have your name on them. They're from you. Now have a look at the tag on one of these gifts and see who the gift is to. And you'll notice that that part of the tag is blank. Now open your eyes. The house that you just entered, that house represents you. And the gifts that you saw in your house, they're the innate gifts that you have. And gifts that, one, you didn't even realise that you had, and two, the gifts where it was on the tag where it says to, they're to people that you don't even realise that you have that gift to give to. It is my belief that each and every one of us are in service to each other, to everyone here in the world. And I want to share a little quote with you that I particularly like. And it says, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." And that's by Muhammad Ali. I'd like to share a story with you about myself and what I thought my purpose and my gifts were to the world. I grew up as a child in a large family of 7 children to Dutch immigrants. And I spent most of my childhood and early adulthood working on the farm. We had a farm in Mombolk. Trevor might be familiar with Mombolk. It's in the Yarra Ranges. And I lived there at our family house for 19 years. And much of my life was about, as soon as I could actually walk, I was out there on the farm working, weeding, we grew flowering bulbs. And my purpose, I believed, was to do the work that I did. Later on, I actually worked in the office and did administration and marketing. Later on, back in 1999, I discovered Reiki, which is a healing modality I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are familiar with. And when I realised that I had the capacity to allow healing to flow through me, through my hands, I thought that this is my gift to the world, my healing ability to lay my hands on people and to change them from a state of pain or discomfort to peace. I thought that that was my gift. Fast forward to 2016, and I realised I had a passion to get to know people at the deepest level. I was already curious about what it was that was underneath people's issues, whether it was emotional or physical. And I'd already studied quite a number of modalities that helped me understand what was going on and how I could help people on a deeper level. And then I started to get curious about what makes people really tick. And that's where I did a lot of research, and I'm a self-admitted YouTube junkie. I'm on there every day, but I'm a self-confessed truth seeker, and I just love to learn. And so I found a particular course about body language. So I studied a little about body language, and if any one of you are familiar with what body language is about, it's about certain movements that we make and micro-expressions that we make with our face that actually reveal the unconscious things that are going on in our life. And from that actual study, that led me to discovering face reading. And I went on to study from 2016 till now the beautiful art of face reading and also the art of reading your birth date based on the patterns of nature, which we are all part of. And it's here that I discovered that my blueprint for life was here all along on my face, that my gifts are actually showing to the world, but I didn't realise that. So I discovered that I had something more to offer than what I thought I really already had. And I also, what revealed through my studies was my birth date also had a lot of information in it that revealed also what my true purpose was. Did you know that the level of our self-esteem can be reflected by how we see ourselves, by our image, by our face, by our bodies? And this leads me to ponder on the high level of depression that I see, particularly in our young people, in our teenagers and young adults. And I realise that that can be in direct relation to how they feel about themselves, their image, their body image, their sense of worthiness. And as a child and a young girl growing up, I realised that I was always very self-conscious about how I looked, how I came across to people. And when I was around 18, 19, I decided I wanted to learn how to become more confident. So I went along to a deportment modelling course that was being run by a retired model by the name of Suzanne Johnson. And at the end of that course, Suzanne pulled me aside and she said to me, "Frances, if you're serious about considering a career in modelling, you may want to consider removing that mole that's on your chin." Well, I was already very self-conscious and about that mole and about lots of other parts of me, so I seriously considered getting that mole removed. I even went to a doctor and had him give me a referral to go and see a skin specialist so that actually he could have that mole removed. But now, knowing what I know about faces and the beauty of the wisdom that is reflected in our faces, I realised that if I had have removed that mole, I would have been removing a part of one of my gifts. Anything that is raised on our skin, on the skin of our face, gives power to that feature on our face. And so my mole is actually on my chin. And the chin on your face represents how much determination and courage and willpower that you have to get through the most challenging experiences in your life. So if I'd gone through and removed that mole, I would have been removing that power that I will have had to power through really challenging times. Mind you, the chin is also about having, some stubbornness, so it might be actually turning up the notch on that as well. Just as a side note, and out of interest for yourself, if you ever want to go and have a look at people's faces with a little bit more interest, if you ever see an indentation or a cleft or a dimple on a person's chin, in Chinese face reading they call that the actual sign of the performer. And that is a person that is actually needing a bit more attention and appreciation. And so you'll naturally see that feature on people that are in the spotlight, like actors and singers. And two that come to mind to me John Travolta and Adele. And just be aware that not just artists have that feature, but maybe your work colleague might have that feature, and that might give you just a bit of a clue as to why they may need a little bit more attention. So I would like to ask you a question. Who here feels that they've found their true life purpose? And who here feels that they know what their gifts are, that they can contribute to the world at large? Beautiful. So there's a good number of people here that do have that understanding. And there's some of you that are not quite sure, and some that are would pretty much think that they haven't. Since my 30s, I always thought that doing whatever work that I enjoyed was my purpose. And I thought raising children, being married, being occupied doing my work was my purpose. And many will say that our purpose on life is to be happy. And on a certain level, I do agree. But then I have to ask the question, why are there so many people on antidepressants? Why are there so many people suffering from depression, anxiety, overwhelm, or confusion, or suffering from pain? Did you know that one of the main reasons people come to see me in my healing practice is not so much about healing their pain. It's actually because they've lost their direction. They're not really sure of which way to go. So I believe that the true way of finding our happiness or our bliss is to find our life purpose, to find our soul's calling, but first to understand and lovingly accept ourselves. And the blueprint or your map to who you are is here. It's on your face, and it's on the day that you were born. And I believe we've also come here with that blueprint in mind, realising that in our physicality, we were going to experience life, the ups and the downs, to enhance our wisdom and our evolvement. So this leads me into something that I'd like to just briefly share with you about your face and about faces in general. And I just wanted to chat to you about wrinkles. Now, society will encourage particularly women to get rid of your wrinkles because somehow that's not a good feature to have. But I'm here to remind you that wrinkles are the hallmark to actually reveal that you've lived a life, that you've felt emotions, and that you've gained wisdom, and to embrace every wrinkle that you receive. There are wrinkles that you're meant to develop, and I'm going to talk to you about two particular ones. When you smile and your cheekbones go up and your eyes turn up a bit, you develop what society will call crow's feet. But in Chinese face reading, they call them joy lines. And the reason why is because our eyes are the window to our heart. And when you smile, you're smiling from your heart and sharing sparks of joy with the person that you're interacting and smiling to and with. Also, there are other lines that we would like to see you develop, and particularly by your 40s and 50s, and these are the lines that come down from the nose. And they're called purpose lines. And when I do a reading, I'm specifically looking to see how your purpose lines are developing, especially if you're into the middle age like I am. And that just tells you that you're on your path, that you're following the course of your blueprint. There are other wrinkles that will develop at different stages of your life. And if I was to show you a map of your face, we would be able to break your face up into the decades. And so when I read a face, I'm actually looking for little wrinkles, moles, any indentations, or even on the ears. For instance, our ears represent the time of our life from conception all the way to age 6 on one ear and 7 to 13 on the other ear. And it's the polar opposite from women to men. And so our ears can tell us about any emotional issues that we may have experienced in our childhood. And then we go to the forehead. From the top of our hairline down to our eyes represent your 20s. And the 20s are the time of life when you go out into the world and you experience life. And as you're going through those experiences and you're saying, I don't care what mum and dad say, I'm going to go do that. What happens is you may experience certain challenges and you may raise your eyes in surprise. And this is where we start to develop those lines there in our forehead. And when I read those, that just tells me that you have learnt certain lessons through that period in your life. And then we go on to our 30s. Now the 30s is a decade where we actually go inwards. It's actually more of an emotional time in our life. And so this is read when we look across the width of our eyes. And our eyes, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is the window to our heart. So that more or less reflects why that time is more emotional. And we will actually see, as I said, little lines develop beside our eyes, but we'll also maybe see some little lines underneath the eyes. And they will also talk about experiences that you may have had that you've learned wisdom through. And then we go on to our 40s. And this period is reflected by our nose and across from the nose. Now, the 40s, or our nose particularly, represents our sense of power. So the bigger your nose, the bigger your power. So embrace your nose. A little side note to that is that when we're in our early developing years, in our early teens, our face is still growing, and it tends to be that young girls look at their nose and they don't like the size of it. And they'll go off and have surgery to reduce the size of their nose. And if they were just to wait till they were in their mid-20s, that gives the face the rest of the chance to catch up, because the nose is the one feature that grows the quickest on our face. So little do they know, they will be disempowering themselves, particularly when it comes to that decade in the 40s. And the 40s is all about the time where you're looking to be more authentic. You're looking to be more successful in your career, maybe trying to work, pay off a house and move ahead in life. And you're actually looking for more authentic relationships. Now the 50s are represented by this section across the mouth and the lips. And we can start to see little wrinkles forming above the mouth and under the mouth when we have felt a sense of depletion, where we've overgiven and become a little bit more resentful about that. And there's a lot of mothers that might attest to that, especially if young children have stayed home longer than when we left. And so it is a time where we're meant to actually become inwards again and nurture ourselves. It's not about nurturing our grown-up kids as much anymore. It's about nurturing ourselves. And it can be during this time that our mouth could start to droop at the edges. So it's not necessarily smiling line, it's actually a drooping line. And this, just by consciously smiling, even if there's nothing to smile about, we'll actually self-correct that. And our chins, as I mentioned earlier, that's a period that relates to our 60s. And that's a time where we've worked really hard, and hopefully by our mid-60s we're ready to retire. And we're ready to actually pull those things down off the top shelf that we've put away for so long and said, now's the time for me to go and do that. The sides of our face represent our 70s, 80s, 90s under the chin. And if we're fortunate enough to get to those decades, this is the time where there's a lot of self-reflection. It's a time to slow down, to embrace life and embrace all that you've done and that all you've achieved. It's a time to actually have a deeper inner perspective of life. And maybe it's also a time of letting go. For some older people, it's time to let go of the family home, for instance, and allow themselves to be taken care of. So coming back to our life purpose, there's more revealed in your birth date about your life purpose than necessarily with what's in your face. And both in your face and both in your birth date, it's here that we can see revealed how you think, how you feel, what drives you, and how you see yourself. And since discovering my own features and what they say about me, and also what my birth date says about me, I have discovered what my gifts are. I understand that my healing capacity is definitely there, it's in my features, but also that I'm here to create change for people, to help them realise how beautiful and amazing they are and what their gifts are, so that I can help them and support them to express those out into the world. Now, this is not based on science that was revealed, yesterday. This is based on science that the Chinese have studied since 3,000 to 7,000 years. But it's not just about discovering your gifts. It's about embodying them. It's about gaining confidence to share those gifts with the world, to develop trust that you have something to share with the world. And any pain or discomfort that you might experience in your body is just a signpost to say you might have gone a little bit off track and might be time to come back and realign. So if I've spurred your interest about any of this, about face reading, please catch up with me at the end of this end of this session today, and I'd love to talk to you a bit more about that. But on a finishing note, I would like to share a beautiful, inspiring quote by a lady called Mary Ann Williamson. And I would ask that as part of this embodying that I mentioned just a minute ago, if you could please place your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your stomach or on your abdomen. And these are two very powerful points in your body that relate to your inner wisdom. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. And you can just close your eyes too, I forgot to mention that. I'll start again. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine, as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So I invite you to open your eyes again. And on finishing, I'd just like to share another little quote from a mystic by the name of Rumi. Be grateful for your life, every detail of it, and your face will come to shine like the sun, and everyone who sees it will be made glad and peaceful. Thank you.